Good morning, friends. I have a long day of processing potatoes and apples ahead of me, so I thought I would start the morning with some masala chai, and as I promised, I'm going to show you how I make it. I guess I'll start off by telling you, first of all, obviously, I have no Indian heritage in me. So if you can speak into this recipe with some tips or pointers, I did get this from an Indian woman's blog, and I looked through quite a few different recipes before deciding on the exact quantities that I was going to try. But the great thing is the word masala just means a number of spice mixtures ground into a powder or paste used in Indian cooking. So I have made this twice before now, and there are a few of these spices that I'm going to use a little bit less of this time, and a few that I'm going to use a little bit more. All right, so we're going to start with, I'm just going to tell you what all of these different spices are in case you are not familiar. Obviously, these are cinnamon sticks, these are fennel seeds, whole cloves. Some of these I got from the Indian grocery store, like the fennel seeds, the whole nutmeg, the green cardamom pods, and the star of anise in bulk, and also the Tata Gold loose leaf tea. This is just black tea that is sold loose leaf. It is supposedly, from everything I read online, the #1 loose leaf black tea in India. So I was really thrilled to find it at the Indian grocery store. I also discovered that I think everything you see here that I bought at the Indian grocery store was cheaper at the Indian market in bulk than on Amazon or anywhere else online, except for, I believe, the green cardamom pods. I think I was able to find these in bulk for quite a bit cheaper, like maybe half the price on Amazon. So other than that, everything that I found at the Indian market was the best price. Of course, I can get the whole cloves and the cinnamon sticks for very inexpensive at any grocery store. I am going to try a new method this time versus what I used last time, and that is by toasting some of these spices in a pot over low heat to toast them a little bit before I grind them in my mortar and pestle. So I am starting with 6 green cardamom pods. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 5 cloves. 1/4 teaspoon of fennel seeds, which obviously is very little, so I'm just going to take 2 little pinches. 1 cinnamon stick, and I would definitely agree with that because I only used half of a cinnamon stick last time and it was not enough. I'm looking forward to having the whole cinnamon stick this time. I am going to go ahead and break it in half for toasting purposes. And 1 star of anise. Isn't this so pretty? It says not to add the nutmeg for the toasting, so I'm going to wait until the crushing part of the spices before we do that. Now let's get this over low heat. We're going to stir constantly for about a minute. I have a few Indian recipes that I like to make on a fairly regular basis. One of them is creamy coconut lentil curry, and you toast the spices for those for a few minutes as well. Although I think we use like a little bit of coconut oil for that one. This time we're just dry toasting them for just about a minute. Now I'm going to put my toasted spices onto my cutting board. The only reason I'm doing that is because I need to use the back of my knife to remove the skin from the cardamom pods. I made this mistake last time, and I ended up having to fish the skin out of my mortar and pestle. The skin is just kind of papery. And now that they're toasted, it actually comes apart really easily. Missed a piece. Okay, now I'll add the cinnamon sticks, the star of anise, and the fennel and cloves. At this point, I will also grate a little bit of fresh nutmeg into my mortar and pestle. Now I will say I do not have a microplane, so I'm just going to use the smallest side of my cheese grater, and it just says a pinch, so fresh nutmeg smells so amazing. It doesn't even compare to store-bought ground nutmeg. Now let's grind this up just roughly. We don't have to get it into a fine powder because that would actually be even more challenging to strain. The last time that I made this chai, I actually poured all of the spices straight into the water in the pot, and then I put my loose leaf tea in a tea ball like this. However, I had kind of forgotten that I have this tea strainer that has really fine holes in it. It came with a coffee cup or teacup that I have, and it sits in there nicely. But I think this will be perfect to sit inside my small sauce pot that I'm going to use to make the chai this time. So now I'm just going to pour all of these spices plus the fresh ginger. I'm going to cut about 1/2 inch off of this fresh ginger. I'm just going to slice it really thinly and add it to the tea thing. And then I will add 3 tablespoons of black tea. I will say the first and second time that I made the masala chai, I felt like I didn't taste a strong enough tea flavor, and for me personally, I like the taste of black tea. I also followed a slightly different recipe, which only had you simmer it for maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and this particular one has you simmer for 10 minutes and then let it sit for another 5 before you strain the spices off. So I think I'll stick with 2 tablespoons of loose leaf black tea this time and see if the extra simmering time makes a difference. I just turned this burner on high heat. Now I'm going to add 1.5 cups of water and wait for it to come to a boil. Once the water began to boil, I set my tea strainer down into the water and immediately realized that about half of my spices were above the water line. So I took some very hot water from our electric tea kettle and poured just a few tablespoons over the top of those spices, because once this is finished simmering the first time, you're going to add your milk and let it simmer for 10 more minutes. The spices and tea have now simmered for 10 minutes over low heat. Now I'm going to add, this is where you would normally add whole milk, but because I am trying to stick with low carb, I am going to add water mixed with some heavy cream, 1.5 cups, which thankfully this is covering my spices even more. And it says 1 to 2 tablespoons of sugar, but I'm going to use Trim Healthy Mama sweetener, which is stevia, erythritol, and xylitol. I'm going to give this a little stir, and then it is going to simmer for another 10 minutes. You do want to make sure that you stir every minute or two while it's simmering for the second 10 minutes because you don't want the milk to burn or scald, and you also don't really want it to have like a skin on top. Now that the tea is done, this is an optional step, and that is to aerate your chai. Aerate just means to basically add oxygen or add air, similar to what some people do with wine or even coffee. So the suggestion is to either take a ladle or to do it this way, like with my measuring cup and the pot, and just pour it back and forth from the pot to the measuring cup. And the key is to make sure you're getting it at least 12 to 18 inches above the pot or the measuring cup, because that is what infuses the air into your chai. This is also supposed to make it creamier and the milk a bit thicker. Once you have aerated your chai, you're going to add everything back to the pot, including your spices, and just let it sit for about 5 minutes. Since I ended up making a bit of a mess with all of my spices, I decided to go ahead and strain it anyways, just to be safe, with some cheesecloth over a colander. So I removed my spices and my tea ball, and I'm going to go ahead and strain it, pouring it back into my measuring cup before I serve it up into our teacups. You can see I had also put the ginger into the water. Now I am pouring myself the first cup, and I can tell you, with the little adjustments that I made, this ended up being my very favorite cup of chai so far. I'm going to write this recipe down as well as the instructions, and this will be the one that I try to master and hopefully memorize so that I can share this delicious cup of masala chai with my friends and family for a long time to come. I would highly encourage you to work a bit of a tea ritual into your daily life. It's a delicious afternoon treat that doesn't have nearly as much caffeine as a cup of coffee. Please let me know if you end up trying this recipe and how you like it. Thanks for watching.